No capes, no rules, no mercy. That is the mantra of Marvel Strike Force's newest team, and this might be the most offensively powered team that we have yet to see in Marvel Strike Force. They're definitely going to change the game. They got interesting mechanics that we haven't seen before, really taking advantage of vulnerable in a lot of different creative ways. They're going to punish people who are using stealth or dodge, a lot of out of turn damage. So let's go ahead and take a look at them. Are they actually going to be good? Or perhaps do they have some weaknesses that nobody else is discussing? Who are we talking about in this case? We are talking about the new team, the Vigilantes. No capes, no rules, no mercy. So we got a brand new Daredevil on the cover there. So he's definitely on the team. Let's go ahead and read about him and see what they're all about. The Vigilantes. They don't carry badges, and local law enforcement had orders to arrest them on sight. But you won't find a tougher and braver bunch to knock down threats than the Vigilante team. This squad of lethal crime fighters is composed of Daredevil Modern, Silver Sable, and the community vote winner, Hit Monkey, along with familiar faces Punisher and Elektra. The Vigilante team thrives in offensive situations and is specifically setting their sights and senses on skill raids. There'll be a key squad in a new upcoming raid, which we'll have more information on in an upcoming blog. Today, we're covering the capabilities of this ferocious and efficient crew. Now, before we go on, let's just break down what we have so far. We got a new team, the Vigilantes, right? So some of the rumors looks like they were true. We have Daredevil Modern, who we saw a picture of earlier. We got Silver Sable. We have Hit Monkey, the person that we voted for as a community. And the reworked characters are Punisher and Elektra. So Daredevil is not a reworked character. This is a new Daredevil. Daredevil Modern. Reworks are Punisher and Elektra. The blog says that the team thrives in offensive situations, skill raids, and then there's an upcoming new raid. Those are the words that are in bold. So we're going to be using this team allegedly on the offensive side outside of raids. And then there's going to be a new raid coming. So interesting. We're going to see how things go. The replacement looks like it's going to be the Vigilantes to replace the Spider Society. So we're going to have to see what that does for the meta. We talk about X-Men, right? Extreme X-Men and Hive Mind. We thought that perhaps one of the two of those would be replaced, but looks like they're going to replace the Spider Society. And we're going to have to struggle with those older teams a little bit longer. Let's continue with some of the benefits here that it says. It says vulnerable, now with even more benefits. Enemies with vulnerable have always been victim to increased damage and attacks. But with the Vigilante team, vulnerable becomes an even greater strategic advantage. The new Vigilante recruits not only make enemies with vulnerable pay, but rewards their allies for pasting the battlefield with it. And here's a short synopsis of what some of the characters do. We got Daredevil Modern. He heals himself and Vigilante allies whenever an enemy with vulnerable is attacked. Even more so in raids. He also lowers the damage of enemies with vulnerable when he's on offense. Silver Sable. When an enemy with vulnerable is attacked, she fills the speed bar for herself and Vigilante allies. Speed bar manipulation is always an excellent thing in a turn-based game. I'm curious to see how this team works. Finally, we got Hit Monkey. Whenever an enemy with vulnerable takes a turn, if his health is full, he attacks the enemy with the highest health, ignoring taunt and stealth. For piercing, then he applies more vulnerable. He also gains crit damage, and if any enemy has vulnerable, for each enemy that has vulnerable, he gains crit chance. All right, so he's gaining crit damage, he's gaining crit chance, and if his health is full, he's taking out of turn damage. New character, new stats hitting you for out of turn damage. Something to pay attention to. The new recruits apply plenty of vulnerable outside of ISO 8 help, and the team as a whole can make attacks extra painful with vulnerable hanging over a target's head. So it seems so far that we've been talking about vulnerable being introduced obviously as a ISO 8 mechanic, but this team looks like it's going to be able to do it regardless of the ISO that you choose, and they're going to have some extra traits to go along with that. Let's see. Offensive machines. Even though the Vigilantes are a skill raid team, their traits and kits set them up to pound enemies while on offense across game modes. Offense bonuses. Both Daredevil Modern and Silver Sable have offense bonuses that reduce enemy potency. Taunt and Terrorize. The Man Without Fear, Daredevil Modern, absorbs enemy attacks with taunts via his special, ultimate, and passive abilities, while the rest of his team utilize multi-targeted attacks to mow down raid waves and clobber teams. Hit Monkey allows the squad to reload quickly by dishing out ability energy when enemies are eliminated. So there's a big emphasis here on raid and offense. So it looks like this team obviously is meant to be used as the skill raid team, but there's a lot of talk about them being on offense in other game modes. What characters do we got? We got Daredevil Modern, speed 118. He is a protector. He has the vigilante tag, obviously, so he's the tank of the team. Basic, assault and battery. We're attacking the primary target for damage, rebound chain to 2 adjacent targets for damage, flip 3 negative effects to positive effects on self and all vigilante allies. ISO 8 assist attack. We still have the damage and we still have the flipping of 3 negative effects to positive. Something to play around with, right? This is how we're going to keep our team cleansed. It'll be interesting. It's a special ability. Law and Order. Energy costs 4/4, so it's going to be ready right away. Apply slow for 2 turns. Defense down for 2 turns. Offense down for 2 turns to your primary target. You're going to hit that person for damage. Bonus attack for more damage. And in raids, flip all negative effects to positive on yourself and vigilante allies. Heal self and all vigilante allies for 15% of this character's max health. Gain taunt for 2 turns and defense up for 2 turns. So again, Daredevil is the tank, but it looks like he's also involved in healing and cleansing the team. So he's the protector. He's kind of also a controller. This is going to be an interesting character. I wonder how it's going to play out. His ultimate ability, Witness Protection, energy 4/6. So it would be, you probably can find a way to use it the next turn. Looks like it would take 2 turns, but we'll probably be able to find a way to take it the next turn. You're going to attack the primary and adjacent targets for damage and apply a vulnerable up to a maximum of 5. Clear all negative effects from self and all allies. Now that doesn't say vigilantes. That doesn't say vigilantes. It says from self and all allies. Gain taunt for 2 turns. Apply defense up for 2 turns. Immunity for 2 turns to self and all vigilante allies. Heal self and all vigilante allies for 20% of this character's max health. So on his ultimate right now, we do see immunity. He's a tank. He's a tank and he's going to have defense up and immunity. So if we can find a way to get safeguard, we're going to be doing pretty good. Passive ability, Born Again. On spawn, if this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, gain taunt for 2 turns and safeguard for 1 turn. So on spawn, we got it covered, right? On spawn, we're coming out of the gate with a taunt and a safeguard. If we can figure out how to fire off our ultimate early, we're going to get immunity as well. Pardon me, we got it coming down here. I should have kept going. Apply 2 deflect, defense up for 2 turns, and immunity for 1 turn to self and all vigilante allies. All right, so this is on spawn. Daredevil Modern showing up out of the gate. Taunt, defense up, immunity, safeguard. That's going to be strong. That's going to be a problem to deal with. But actually, we're using it on the offensive side, so it's going to be good, right? It's going to be good for us. It doesn't say in raids. It just says on spawn. So this is going to be something we're going to be able to take advantage of. When an enemy with vulnerable is attacked, heal self and all vigilante allies for 5% of this character's max health. In raids, heal for 20%. And clear 1 negative effect from self and all vigilante allies. Vigilante allies gain 100% accuracy. Okay, so essentially things, again, people can't dodge. People can't dodge. Even if they're blinded, Daredevil is blind, so with his radar sense, he can hit you anyway. But he's granting that to the entire team. Gain 25% block chance per vigilante ally. So with an entire team, he's going to block Gain 15% block amount. So that's 60%, right? Not including himself. If it does include himself, that's 75% block amount. If this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, this character and all vigilante allies cannot gain bleed. That's pretty dope, right? We're not really thinking about that, but there's a lot of characters that give you those bleed debuffs and just slowly over time, damage over time, can get a hold of you. So in raids, we don't have to worry about it. And then there's other teams we can go up against. Maybe the mercs for money. I don't know, right? We got safeguard and immunity that they'll be able to stand up against perhaps in Alliance War. On offense, if this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, lower the damage of enemies with vulnerable by 30%. This will not stack with other effects such as offense down. Okay, interesting. So if they have the offense down, if your opponent has offense down, is that 50% damage reduction? Right, they're hitting for 50% less than they normally would. So if they don't have offense down, they're going to be lowered by 30% if they have vulnerable. So just by getting the vulnerable out there, it's like a mini offense down. Then if you do get the offense down on them, that takes priority. Interesting. Who do we got next? We have the Silver Sable. Silver Sable. All right, now just notice some of the words in her traits. Normally we wouldn't draw attention to this, but she's a mercenary and Spider-Verse. So especially for new to mid-game players, those are 2 tags that you might be able to use in certain other game modes. You can perhaps use them in the campaigns, things of that nature for unlocking certain characters. She'll be new. She'll have new stats. Maybe she can help with getting ourselves a couple legendaries or progressing through the campaign so we can farm the characters that we need. Her basic attack is point blank. Attack the primary target for damage and flip 3 positive effects into negative effects. If it's with the ISO 8 assist or on a counter attack, looks like we still got the damage. Some of it becomes piercing damage. So the overall damage is lower, 264 as opposed to the 310. But we now have 17% piercing damage, and it's still going to flip those 3 positives into negatives. Something to take advantage of. Special insertion protocol. Energy costs 5/5, so you can use this right away. In raids, clear barrier from all enemies. Flip all positive effects into negative effects on the primary and adjacent targets. Attack primary and adjacent targets for 280% damage. Apply slow in 2 bleeds. Ultimate also available. Okay, so this is good. This is good. When you have both abilities available, you have the choice on how you want to proceed. So on our special, what do we got? Clear barrier, damage, apply slow in bleeds. What about the ultimate? Flash and clear. 6/6 right off the bat. Apply heal block for 2 turns and disrupted for 2 turns to all enemies. Clear barrier from all enemies. And in raids, you're going to clear charged from all enemies. On offense, if this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, reduce the duration of all positive effects by 2 on all enemies. So this is that decay effect. It's just going to count down 2 turns of any positive effect on the opposing side. Attack all enemies for damage. Apply a vulnerable up to a maximum of 5. And in raids, you're going to apply trauma for 2 turns to all enemies. Apply ability block for 2 turns to 2 random support enemies. This attack gains 500% extra focus and cannot be counterattacked. So we should probably expect on these new raid nodes, whoever they are, they might have some extra resistance. We're probably going to have difficulty landing some of our debuffs if you don't have the newer team. Spider Society works a lot on their own positive effects. They do hand out negative effects, but their key is that they pump up a bunch of their own positive effects and do some crowd control with slows and things like that. So it looks like if we don't have that, if we don't have this team, that might be a problem that we're going to run into, just a guess on my part. Passive ability, Silver Merc. In raids, on spawn, fill speed bar by 15%, plus 5% speed bar per vigilante ally. So we're talking about an additional 20%. So 35%, 40 if depending on how they count it, for self and all vigilante allies. When an enemy that has vulnerables attacked, fill speed bar by 15%. Okay. When an enemy that has vulnerable is attacked, fill speed bar by 15% for self and all vigilante allies. That's pretty potent, man. That's pretty potent. I think it's probably just going to work in raids. We'll just have to see. On successful attack by this character, apply defense down to each attacked target. On offense, while this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, lower enemy dodge chance by 100%. If this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, enemies cannot gain death proof. So what we have so far, just with the members that we have, just for showing up on offense, enemies cannot gain death proof at all. So no need to drill down people at the end of a match. They can't have it at all. Their dodge chance is reduced by 100%, meaning they can't dodge. Daredevil, increase accuracy by 100, so that means they can't evade. Excuse me. Stealth doesn't matter. I'm getting confused here. So they can't dodge and they can't do anything to make it so. Oh, blind. If you receive blind, you're still going to hit. Okay. So your hits are still going to land. Interesting. Hit monkey. Speed 127. Basic macaque attack. Attack primary target for 300% damage and apply bleed for 2 turns. If this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, prolong the duration of all negative effects by 1 up to a maximum of 3. On the ISO assist attack, less damage. We got more piercing. We still have the bleed, and we still have the prolonging of all negative effects. That's right. Those of us who that's a good move. Okay, it says all negative effects. So you're talking about trauma. You're talking about stun, right? Talking about ability block. Put that on a cat. Prolong the duration. For a basic attack, that's been very potent. For those of us who are familiar with that, very, very potent move. Special. Monkeying around, energy cost 4/4. Attack primary target for damage and apply a vulnerable up to a maximum of 5. Prolong the duration of all negative effects by 1 up to a maximum of 3. So does he have this on all of his attacks? All of his attacks are just going to prolong negative effects. Chain to 4 targets within 2 spaces of the previous target. Apply vulnerable up to a maximum of 5. Prolong the duration of all negative effects. Wow. This attack gained 25% crit damage against targets that have vulnerable. Counterattack does not break this chain. So he has a chain attack. These can be dangerous, man. He's got a chain attack that doesn't have to ping between 2 people. It can go around. So if a person's stealth in the middle, he can just go around. There's people so you can still hit a person on the corner if somebody got tapped out in the middle. Bro, that's dangerous. And he's going to have some crit damage increase. Ultimate Assassin Ape. Energy cost 6/6. So again, you got your choice. You start out with the special. You can start out with the ultimate. Attack primary target for damage, 300% piercing damage. Stun for 1 turn. Trauma for 2 turns. Bonus attack the enemy with the highest damage. Ignoring taunt in stealth for 300% piercing. And in raid, it's going to apply stun for 1 turn. Trauma for 2 turns. Man, the bonus attack is in raids is going to apply stun and trauma. So primary target, you're going to stun and trauma. In raids, the bonus person's also going to get that. Apply speed up for 1 turn, offense up for 2 turns to self and all vigilante allies, and you have extra focus for this attack. So they want to make sure it lands. Question is the rest of those 2 things in raids? Passive, Saru Assassin. On turn or on an enemy with vulnerable turn. On my turn, this is his passive. This is his passive. On my turn with Hit Monkey or on an enemy with vulnerable turn, If this character's health is full, attack the enemy with the highest health, ignoring taunt and stealth for 200% piercing. Apply a vulnerable up to a maximum of 5. If this character's health is not full, then heal for 10% of this character's max health. So just by the enemy taking a turn, you're either going to heal your character or you're going to do damage to their character. Just because they showed up. On enemy death, generate 1 ability energy for self. So this is how you battery yourself. It's going to, in raids, right? It's just going to help you to keep going. Outside of raids, because the next line says in raids, so this happens outside of raids. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting. So it's just like with Black Bolt, where you want to try to tap, not like Black Bolt, but you want to try to tap that weak person out, like Death Pool. That's what I was thinking of, like Death Pool, where you want to try to tap that person out. I don't know if 1 ability energy. I guess it depends on where you are. If you know that your next move is you're 2 away from the ultimate or whatever, tap somebody out so the next move is your ultimate. In raids, generate 1 ability energy for all vigilante allies. While an enemy has vulnerable, gain 25% crit damage. For each enemy that has vulnerable, gain 5% crit chance up to a maximum of 25. Wow. For each enemy that has vulnerable, 5% crit chance up to a maximum of 25. So that's 5 enemies. On raid nodes, there's more than that, but outside of raids, if we're still able to use this, the whole team is still functioning on the other side. 25% crit chance. If this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, non-mythic enemies cannot have their speed increased except by positive effects. We've been seeing that a lot. Pardon me one moment, y'all. I have to have a sip. I got to get a sip. Look at this, man. All right. I'm interested, right? We've been getting that stat a lot, or that ability a lot. So I'm curious to see how it works, right? We know that there's different characters that use something similar, and sometimes it works a little bit different. So curious to see how it works in the case of Hitmonkey. So what about the reworked characters? Punisher updates. Look at this. Health stat increased by 729%. Good night. He's been gone for a while, man, right? He was an introductory character to the game, like a day 1 character. He did get a rework. Did he? Was he on the, yeah, he was on the, I got to think now. I think he had got a rework at one time. Maybe I'm wrong. Let's take a look. Let's see what things got changed. His basic ability, M4 Carbine. Attack primary target for piercing damage. Hold things piercing damage. Chain to 2 additional targets for 260% piercing damage. So higher percentage damage than it was back in the day. And it is all piercing as opposed to a portion of it being piercing now. They didn't give, all right, just making sure they didn't give his tags. Special grenade launcher. What's it going to do? Now it is going to transfer 3 positive effects, excluding taunt, from the primary target to self, all vigilante allies, and all military allies. Yep, so he did have the military tag. There was skill military. Was he on that team? I can't remember. Attack primary target for 260% piercing. Attack all adjacent enemies for 260% piercing. So it looks like that's the same damage he did last time. So he's doing some type of flat damage to everybody. So in this case, though, you're taking positive effects away and spreading that to the team. Ultimate, fully loaded. If this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, clear barrier from all enemies. Attack primary target for 250% piercing. All enemies for 250% piercing. Hit your primary AoE, so that person's going to take it twice. Interesting. Passive, lock and load. Let's see what's different. When an enemy attacks a vigilante ally, if this character has 4 or more vigilante allies, attack that enemy for 125% piercing. So we got some out of turn damage here. When a vigilante or defender ally uses their special, attack the most injured enemy for 125% piercing. When a vigilante or defender, because that was the team he was on originally, uses their special, attack the most injured enemy for 125% piercing. So you think of infestation. On infestation, you have characters that if this person does an ability, then that person does ability. So it's always boom, boom, two people going. That's what makes that team so difficult. Here we only have one person that does it, but still, one person uses their special, then he's going to attack the most injured enemy. And so what we saw earlier, when we think about it, right? We had a lot of characters that show up with their special ready. So they're going to take their turn. Punisher is going to also follow right behind and do more damage. And it might be one of those cases where we do our special, control a bigger person, knowing that Punisher is going to tap out the weak person. Right? We're used to that. We'll take advantage of that. On hit, apply a vulnerable up to a maximum of 5. In raids, you're going to apply bleed with that as well. This character's attack deal an additional 50% damage to any villain enemy. So that's still there, right? That was part of the kit before, but it looks like it's improved. We look at the old 30% damage. Now it's up to 50% damage. And they got 2 dots here. I wonder if that means something. It's not just a period. There's 2 dots. What about Electra? It's either a typo or it means something. Electra. A bunch of high percentage stat increases. Same deal. She's been on, she was a day 1 character. She's been on her 1 team for a very long time. Looks like Shadowland as well back in the day. I forgot about that. But still, it's been a long time. So what happened? Her basic attack is sneak attack. Attack primary target for 250% damage and apply 2 bleeds. And you're going to gain 1000% extra focus for this attack. So this is going to drop the bleeds on you. They want that to happen. There is no information as to an ISO 8 attack here. So we'll have to ask about that. Special ability into the shadow. Attack primary target for 300% piercing. Apply 2 vulnerable up to a maximum of 5. Clear 5 positive effects. Okay. So back in the day, it was 2 and 3 positive effects. We got a lot more standing on that with characters these days. So they upped it to 5. What about her ultimate ability? Vital Strike. A lot of adjustments. Clear barrier from the primary target. In raids, gain 25% damage per negative effect on the target. Okay. We loaded them up with negatives. We can do an extra damage. Attack primary target for 500% damage plus 20% piercing. Apply disrupted for 2 turns. So that's something we used to do back in the day. We used her to stop tanks. Looks like a lot of that's still happening if that's outside of raids. Gain 500% extra focus for the attack. And in raids, if the primary target has 3 or more vulnerable, this attack deals double damage on kill. Fill speed bar by 80%. All right. So again, that's what we usually use this for back in the day. Electra drops down, KO attack. If you get it, speed bar by 80%. So pretty much she's going to get to go again or pretty close. Good night. Could be a big hit too. Passive, Death's Grace. What do we got? On spawn, apply evade to self and all adjacent vigilante Shadowland in hand allies. So adjacent vigilante. So that might matter. Maybe it won't. Maybe it will. That might matter where we place her. In raids, generate 5 ability energy just for showing up. So this is just to help you be able to keep going in raids. In raids, generate 5 ability energy for self and all vigilante allies. On death, 15% chance to revive with 100% of this character's max health. She's going to revive at full power. Low chance of that happening, though. 15% chance. But if this character has 4 or more Shadowland or Vigilante allies, okay, so Vigilantes is the team, gain 85% chance to revive on death. So that's 100. 15, 85, that's 100. So if the whole team is standing, you can't knock her out. Subject to change. If the whole team is standing, you can't knock her out. She will not be the first person to be removed from the game. So now we've had our introduction to the new team, the Vigilante team. What are your thoughts? I'm curious. I want to see what they're like. I really want to know what they do in Alliance War. It looks like a lot of their abilities will not necessarily, they'll have some stuff that's definitely locked to raids, but not everything. They want you to be able to use them on the offensive side, and that's a good thing. A lot of times they're a raid team. So just think about our raid teams when we use them. We usually stick them on defense and Alliance War because we put a lot of investment into them. The way their kits work, the kits are designed to just work on auto in the raid. So their things are right. There's no thought process. The moves just happen, and that the team's probably running on optimal value without your input. So it makes raid teams really strong Alliance War defensive teams. I think they're trying to get away from some of that. So they're going to allow us to still use them on the offensive side. So with some thinking, it looks like the team could be really potent. So even if you did put them on the defensive side, they would just be a stat wall, right? They would just be a stat wall. The team won't necessarily function the way it would on the offensive side or in raids. So you could put them on defense and just try to overpower your opponent stat wise, but they won't work the way they would work in the hands of the player, which I think is going to be really interesting. The team's strong with taking advantage of those vulnerables and things like that when they knock people out. I'm curious to see what people come up with. What do you think? What are your thoughts about this team? Are you looking forward to the Vigilante team? And what about this new raid that we're talking about? It says we've got some information in the upcoming blog. What do you think? What's going on? What's the changes that are coming down the pipe in Marvel Strike Force? I want to know what your thoughts are on the matter. And if you haven't checked this video out over here, please do. It's legit.